The following podcast is a W2M Network partnership production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Running Wild Podcast. I'm your co-host, Rich. Alongside me, as always, my co-host, Runz.
Bro!
All right, before we explain all of that, just want to remind you guys that we're brought to you in partnership with LastWordOnSports.com, PWPartners.com, as well as the Wrestling to the Max Network. All right, with that all out of the way, we have a big episode today. We're going to be talking about some shows that we went to this weekend. We'll also have an exclusive interview with Women of Honor wrestler Kelly Klein. So this is a huge episode. All right, so let's get started. I guess in chronological order, we'll talk about Evolve first. So Saturday night.
And Sunday night. Oh, yeah, Saturday night for you. But, yeah, rightfully so. We'll talk about Evolve first.
So, Saturday night, I actually went out to Deer Park, Long Island, for Evolve 68, which took place at the New York
NYWC
Wrestling the New York Wrestling Connections arena out there.
Is it called the Sportatorium? Or
it's actually called the Sportatorium, just like the one in, the Texas?
Yeah, I think so. That's why I didn't know. I was like, wait a minute, am I completely making this up, or is that actually a thing?
And I'm not going to lie to you, I normally wouldn't travel that far, just because it's just kind of a pain, but I did get a chance to go out there. The only complaint I have before I get into the show is just it was very hot, and if you actually watched Evolve 68, you could see that the heat affected the wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, and they talked about it on commentary the whole time, so, I texted you a bunch of times, how hot is it? Because it looked ridiculous. Everyone kept talking about it, and I was just so thankful to be sitting in my air-conditioned room watching it. So,
well, I mean, yes, I did get to dap up Johnny Gargano, so not going to lie, kind of marked out for that. But the event was... So it's hard to talk about it separately because this really was it felt like one show separated by 14 hours.
Yeah,
68, 69.
Yeah.
Everything...
Usually their weekends, blend well together. They do a great job of... mix matching who's winning the night before and who's getting a loss the night after, etc. So that nobody falls too far behind if they don't want them to,
So, going into the weekend, you had Darby Allin, who actually got into Evolve through one of the seminars.
I think the WrestleMania weekend one, yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen him almost kill himself live at the last show we went to, Laboom, where he got back body dropped over the ropes by Chris Dickinson and almost landed in the crowd. Hit his legs on the guardrail and smacked his head down on the floor. So he continued this streak, but going into the weekend, he was saying that he had two matches and he needed to win one of them so that he could get a contract with Evolve, because he had just been kind of appearing with them. So he ends up facing off against T.J. Perkins, and the Sportatorium has an interesting ring setup where their ramp is like the old school WCW one,
yeah,
where it actually goes even with the ring. So he stands at one side of the ramp and just flies knee first at Perkins against the post, and Perkins moves. And I don't know what it looked like on TV, and I still haven't been able to see it. But in person, I was like, this guy's killed himself again. And then everyone was chanting, please don't die. I don't know.
Yeah, he's certainly a guy who's putting his body on the line. And, as we saw the next night at Laboom, he earned that crowd's respect from the moment his entrance music hit, and it was just a really cool thing to have been there for the first one, where he was no one. He almost killed himself, and then everyone was just like, so much respect and all of that. So then came out to a huge pop, ended up rolling up Tony Nese to get the victory, and the place went nuts.
Oh my God.
And it was so cool, to see, like, he was made in front of us, and now here he's getting the contract in front of us. So really smart move to do it at La Boom, and just awesome crowd reaction.
His story was really fantastic, and then you also had just a really list of great matches, just a great card. You had Ricochet. So Ricochet hadn't been announced like way earlier. He became available because I guess some bookings fell through, and he was available to show up. So you had Ricochet versus Matt Riddle versus Tony Nese. And a little background: Tony Nese is kind of a NYWC. He's been there a bunch of times. He's been performing there a lot. So I mean, in a match with one bona fide star, one bona fide up and coming star in Riddle, Nese comes away with the victory, and it's just a crazy match.
Yeah, I was really shocked that he got the win. I think you had commented beforehand, like, "Oh, I wonder who's in the match to get pinned." And it turned out like the match ended, and I saw, like, I looked away for a second, like the match ended, and I saw Tony Nese celebrating, and I was like, "What? Like, oh, okay, well, all right, yeah, I guess, whatever." Like it was a cool way to end it. They did a good job, selling the submissions and then the move off the top. So whatever. Like it was a nice finish. It worked out, but I was stunned.
Well, this is another guy that we got to see, like, at a kind of subterranean church gymnasium, 3 feet away from us, in a crowd of like maybe 200 people, and now he's at WrestlePro.
And now we watched him from 3 feet away in a crowd of 200 people.
Well, there were more than 200. I'm just saying. Well, I think there's more than 200. I just, I mean, there's a difference between.
But like, even then, like you were. See, it's different for you because you weren't as familiar with Nese.
Okay.
Whereas, like when he was coming, I was telling you, like, yo, like he's a real wrestler. Like I've seen him around. So for me, I've seen him in Evolve before then, and et cetera. But I get what you're saying. Like he's good, man. And now he's beginning to break out a little bit more. And with the exodus of Evolve guys, there's definitely spots. 2 guys we'll get to later. Riddle and Page took a step up. So now, they replaced Gargano and Perkins at the top, but now their spots in the middle are open. So Nese and those guys fill those spots, and Allen comes in and fills that spot. So, just great job of booking. That's the difference between an Evolve and certain other companies. There's always a continuous star train going, and they have to be, because people are leaving constantly. So you need that. But the fact that they're able to establish their own, semi-homegrown people and make them into legitimate stars is a cool thing. And to be 3 blocks away from my house at La Boom in such a crazy environment, it just, it's kind of a surreal feeling. Like, well, just quick, like, to see T.J. Perkins holding the Cruiserweight Championship and going to Monday Night Raw in 4 days, when 4 days ago, like, we shook his hand, like I said, 3 blocks from my house in a Latin nightclub. That's nuts. Like, that's everything I love about professional wrestling, and like everyone should love about wrestling, is that's possible.
I think the best part is walking out of. I mean, I'm jumping ahead for a second, but leaving Evolve 69 and looking to see the line of people getting ready to go into the nightclub is just ridiculous.
Yeah, like women in dresses and stuff like that. Like, that's awesome.
So, let's see, what else was going on at 68? Then you also had, the main event. I think I'm jumping. You had Yehai taking on Jigsaw. I always like watching Yehai. And this is in wrestling. The term for the emotions shown on your face, the facials. The facials that Fred Yehai has are just absurd.
Yeah, it's a permanent smell like shit face. It's just, like, always like,
and then, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
I pop for those so hard. So it was nice seeing him. Jigsaw, is just a really great. He's a good talent. I'd like to see him a little bit more consistently, but it was fun seeing those guys. And then, of course, you had Zack Sabre Jr. in the main event of Evolve 68 against Johnny Gargano in his last singles match. And before, I ended up going to this creative seminar that I won't really talk about too much. That was just a fantastic experience, and I thank everyone who was involved. I wouldn't have been at this show. We had gotten tickets to 69, and that would have been enough for me. I don't need to drive out to Deer Park. And even though there was the whole idea of the last singles match, I'm happy I was there just because Gargano ends up coming out before the Riddle Nice Ricochet triple threat, and he actually says to Nice and Riddle that they need to basically step up and take his spot. And he kind of ignored Ricochet for a second, and Ricochet was got a sad face. And he's like, no, I'm just ignoring you because you're there. He's like, I'm calling them to step up their game. And then he has this match with Zack Sabre Jr. And as a mark, I don't know why I didn't know that Johnny was going to lose that match, but either way, I was surprised. But and Zack Sabre Jr. ends up making him tap, and you could tell during the match that they actually had to kind of change their plans up a little bit because they were so sweaty, they were sliding off each other. And it was crazy. I've never seen the temperature or the atmosphere actually affect a match the way it did that night.
I definitely agree with that because as soon as the match started, they did a weird exchange of rolls or the missed kicks, whatever it was, and they throughout the match they did 2 or 3 other things where I was like, wow, I think I even commented on Twitter wow, a really great way to keep the crowd entertained and not waste energy. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really smart, paced and booked match. It didn't take anything away from the match. It was still a great match, as is expected from these two. And I don't really care whether it's a singles match or a tag match. That part didn't really matter to me. I just wanted to be there for the last match. So I'm glad we got to be there. Well, yes, it would have been cool to be there for both, but whatever. Either way, I got to see Johnny Gargano, so it didn't matter. But yeah, killer match. Like I said, as expected from these two.
Yeah, and then you had so after Gargano poses the challenge basically to 2 guys, Gulak actually came out. Not Gulak, I'm sorry. Galloway comes out, and he's like, Matt Riddle, you got to join us. Matt Riddle. We're trying to save Evolve. And before, Riddle looks at the crowd, he's like, bro, should I do it? And just as it seems like he might actually answer.
When he shook Johnny Gargano's finger, I don't know if you could see it on the TV. Gargano extended his hand and he just took the tip of his finger. That was funny. Yeah, continue.
Gulak attacked Galloway. Yeah. So that there was no answer there. And that match, that was another one where every time that Galloway got chopped, there was this just mist, this mist that came off of him, just going up into the air. So that was pretty insane. And then at the end of the night, Gargano got to kind of do a proper send off after he lost to Sabre Jr. Zack kind of gave him the ring and said, thank you so much for what you've done for the company. And then Ricochet came out, and then they left, and then Johnny actually called out Gabe, who was behind the curtain. Gabe Sapolsky was behind the curtain, and he's like, no, don't call me out. And then he came out anyway, and they had a hug in the ring, which was a really nice moment. And then Gargano went around and he literally high-fived. I'm sitting in the second row. I see him drop down, and he's going around. He's about to go around to everyone. So I jumped up, and right away, got a high five. I was super excited, and read my text message right away because I didn't realize that you could see me on TV. So Runz over here is like, "Oh, nice dap up," and I'm like, "What?" And it was weird because I actually looked around the room like you had seen me, but then I realized, oh, you probably saw me on TV because you're not in Deer Park. So
where are you? What?
But it was a really nice turnout. I will say that the way it was packed almost rivaled as. I would say there were maybe a few more people in Laboom, but actually they weren't expecting a large turnout, and it was there was standing room only.
Yeah, but it's not as I don't know. It's not as big a venue, is it?
I think the seating is deeper. So like where, let's say, on the sides of the ring you only had like a couple of rows, you had deeper rows.
So you had deeper rows, but like maybe less seats. I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe.
Either way, doesn't matter.
It was hard to get around.
That's good because I think we mentioned last week that they weren't expecting a big turnout, and I thought them adding Ricochet was kind of like a response to that. So good thing his bookings opened up or whatever the case, and he was able to jump on. Maybe that helped at the end, but I just Evolve is too good, to not draw the biggest crowds that they can at these places. So if you're anywhere near these places and a wrestling fan, you got to go check them out. Even shows that I've watched and been like, it wasn't that good. It was still better than most other shows. You know what I mean? Like certain shows, they build to other ones, but they're still fantastic shows. Like going to Evolve 69, I was like, there's 4 test matches that whatever. They won't be, I don't know any of these other 3 guys, so who knows? But going there and being there for those 4 matches, not one of them disappointed. And at any time, the test could have won. So, it just goes to show they deliver, man, all the time, always.
Yeah, one of my, lame claims to fame. So Gargano had a special shirt made, like WWN icon, that he was selling, and he tweeted that he only made 50 shirts. And before the show starts, not all the guys are out selling their shirts, because I was there very early. So I'm sitting there, and I asked someone, can I buy the Gargano shirt? I'm waiting for it, and they're like, oh, Johnny's not out yet. He'll be out in a second. I know he listens, so I openly apologize, Johnny, because I bum rushed that man. I'm fairly certain that I was the person who bought the first of the 50. And I remember they're on the mic, and Trevin Adams is like, and he only made 50 of these, and I think there's only about 35 left at this point, so you better go up and get one. And I was like, yeah, I'm wearing it right now, champ. I'm super excited. So it was a really great show. I was happy I went out there. And then the amazingness continued the next night. Like you said, the test matches, I got to see Travis Gordon, a.k.a. Flip Gordon, the night before at 68 in the dark match, and then he came out for one of the test matches. I'm not sure if it's just because I like saying flip, 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 because that might be a huge part of it, but he's fun to watch. He was actually doing more flips the night before. So I'm not sure if that had something to do with some of the people on the card and everything, but I thought he was pretty good. Chuck O'Neil came out and he faced Tracy Williams. I'm not sure if it was kayfabe, but later on Gulak ends up saying that Tracy Williams hurt his knee and had to be rushed to the hospital. I don't know if that's true or not. If you remember, so Gulak...
No. Before you dig yourself in a deeper hole here, after that match, Dustin and Drew Galloway came out, put the chair on his knee, and Galloway stomped on it. And then, they left and everyone carried him out.
All right, hilariously, I completely forgot that. So when Gulak comes out later, Gulak ended up wrestling against Dustin. No, they did that. They did that to Gulak. They didn't do that to
No,
Williams.
They didn't. They did it to Tracy Williams.
Okay. All right. They did it to Tracy Williams. Then Gulak ends up losing his match because Galloway came out with a chair. The referee somehow didn't see him slip it into the ring. Dustin DDTs Gulak on the chair, so he wins that grudge match. So Gulak kind of came away from the weekend having lost to both Dustin and Galloway. And then before the Riddle TJP match, Gulak comes out and basically calls them both out and says, you guys are members of Catchpoint. I got, me and Tracy got our asses handed to us earlier, and you guys were nowhere to be found. And I thought Stokely's answer was fantastic, just straight up, this man is going to Monday Night Raw. he's not getting involved in your war right now. And then Riddle's like, well, I just want to wrestle, bro. So they just kind of threw that out the window. That match is now actually Evolve put that up for free on YouTube. So if you're not going to order the whole event, which honestly, go order 69. Like, you should order the entire event. But for
I mean, it's $15. Like, come on, you can spare that.
It's totally worth it. But if you want to see a snippet of it and you want to see our beautiful faces, go on YouTube and take a look at the free TJP Riddle match where
and see my fantastic reaction.
Yeah. That was, Riddle ends up, and as it should be, right? TJP's leaving.
I mean, we finished discussing the front part of the card, and then we can move into this, or Ethan Page and David Starr.
I'm clearly too excited to I'm jumping around everywhere. I'm experiencing it again. So David Starr has been appearing up, he's been on Ring of Honor recently. He's been on TNA, so he's actually been around. He faces Ethan Page, and
it's I watch both of those shows, and I've never seen him. So I just assumed he's tier 1, that kind of stuff.
Oh, Starr has been on tier 1, but he was. Do you remember? I'm not sure if you remember me talking about Ring of Honor, but I said a couple weeks ago that Punisher Martinez came out and crushed 4 guys during a match. Starr was one of them.
He was one of those guys.
So I remember that. So even the night before, Page had a match against Dan Barry, which was just like a comedy bit. Dan Barry of right now Holy Foley fame. So he's, Page, he was basically like, let's wrestle. And Page is like, I don't wrestle. I powerbomb. I know how to do the package pile driver. And he tried to teach him how to do a wrist lock. And then Page said that Page escaped a move. He reversed a move by grabbing the ropes with his feet, and then yelled out, "Come on, guys, wrestling!" So that was a fun match. And then he continued this kind of comedy thing with Starr. They started out kind of going back and forth. He ends up doing the Lex Luger. Page does the Lex Luger boob bounce after Starr grabbed his pecs and was like, "Yeah, you're really a body guy," and jiggled his pecs around. So that was kind of funny. And then they got a little after Starr ends up running him over, crotch first into the face, which I would also take offense to this. So things got serious. Page comes away with the package pile driver, but I felt like that match told different levels of stories. It was funny at first, and then things got serious, and they were pulling off some nasty moves back and forth. So I really enjoyed that match. I think, they're putting over that package pile driver. I've never seen anyone else use it. All right. You can't see the look on Runz's face right now, but he is furious that I just said that.
There was no look. I knew exactly what you were trying to do there.
All right. Clearly Kevin Owens reference there, but
yeah, I mean, I really, you mentioned it at 69, and then I got a chance to watch it afterwards. But the match with Dan Barry was hilarious. Like you said, the back and forth stuff with the wrestling and teaching him the stuff, and no, that's not how you do this. And he had Barry in a hold at one point, and then Barry was like, "All right, so now I'm going to reverse it," and he was like, "No." And he kept them in it. So that was funny. And then like you said, carried over with Starr. And I loved right after he crotched him, that he just laid him out with an elbow. Perfect. Exactly what your reaction should be when something like that happens. So that was really good. And Ethan Page looked vicious again with the package pile driver. Put over Starr at the end. Carried him out. So nice moment. Hopefully we get to see David Starr again.
Yeah, a kinder, gentler Page, right? Just a nice guy. Just setting the stage for later. But this nice guy carries the other guy out. What a nice gesture.
Which he also did with Dan Barry the night before.
Yeah. So what a nice guy. What a nice gesture. And we would find out that even though he tweeted at our account that he makes better videos than this. The anonymous video of somebody wanting to attack Mr. Gargano would have been Mr.
I wonder
Page.
if there was more videos supposed to come, and he was like, "Oh man, I guess they really didn't like this shit. Let's just nah, forget it. Like, I'll just do this.
Yeah, we're influencing
or like,
the product.
oh wait, they know it's me already. Damn it!
Like, those running wild guys, they're so smart.
I don't know. Like, as soon as I saw it, it just clicked. Like, oh well, he edits videos, so that's a easy way. Like, that part just clicked. Me knowing him, but whatever. Like, still at the event, I wasn't sure what was happening, so that's fine. But we can get to that after the main event. So we had TJP and Riddle, right? Which was probably the match I was most excited for. Period. And like, I just want to say first, we walk into La Boom, Matt Riddle standing there. Like, I don't want to walk in and be like, hey, Matt Riddle, what's up, man? Like, so I walked over, I bought some DVDs, and then I turned around and he's like, yo, nice shirt, bro. And like, he gives me a hug. So then I'm standing there waiting for you, right? We go back, we get to our seats. I come back out to give you your ticket, and I'm standing there waiting. And like, somebody comes up, asks him for a picture. He takes the picture. Somebody comes up, asks him to sign some stuff, and he literally tells the guy, yeah, man, I'll sign anything you want. Like, yeah, I don't care. And then, so he signs the stuff. Another guy takes a picture. I take the picture of him. So then he's like, oh, yeah, swap. So then I take the picture with him. And, he wasn't charging anyone for anything. He was just standing there, just hanging out. He was selling his stuff, obviously, but he was standing there, hanging out, talking to people, taking pictures, signing stuff for free. Like, the guy was already the top guy, basically, at Evolve, or one of the most popular, and, clearly destined for big things. And he's just standing there hanging out with the fans. Like, that's the kind of stuff I really enjoy seeing on these shows. Not trying to make a quick buck here and there, not trying to do this just to get everyone's money. Nah, he was just like, oh, you're my fan? All right, cool, I'm a fan of you then. That's so cool. So, yes, to get to the match, wow. Wow. Fantastic back and forth match. I don't know, like, fast-paced, reversals, submissions, a bunch of awesome submission reversals. The finish came with the bro mission and the elbows. Like, the crowd went nuts, including myself. Like, if you're watching the show, as soon as Riddle hits him with the elbows, there's a guy in a white t-shirt, stands up clearly behind Riddle, screaming, let's go, and like throwing my fist in the air. I was completely bought into that match. And like, it was so good, and either person could have won. Fantastic job. Which is what I love most about Evolve, period, is that anyone can win any match. They do such a good job of the back and forth stuff, the reversals, the realism of it.
It was awesome. And then after the match, TJP had Stokely threw TJP a little going away party, brought out two ladies with stacks of fake money and some wine bottles.
Yes, which I still have the $50 bill in my house.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then he
for a second, so the money's in the ring. It really looks legit.
Oh yeah.
And so they're clearing out the ring, and like, they're not. I noticed, like, during the segment and all that, they weren't like throwing the money around. So I was like, oh wow, okay. And then so afterwards, I was like, yo, cameraman, I dropped my money in the ring. Can you get that back to me? And he like slides me a 50, and I was like, yo, he just gave me 50. Oh, damn. Like, before a second, I was like, yo, holy shit, cool, nice.
I'm just gonna put it out there. I got a $5 bill. So I felt kind of cheated there. But they had a nice send-off. TJP really got a nice reaction from the crowd. He went around and kind of like dapped up everyone that was in the front row, or anyone who ran up to the guardrails. And it was just a nice moment. It's weird because obviously if Gargano wasn't leaving, it would have been more of TJP's night. But because it was Gargano's last night, Cody Rhodes bought everyone pizza. And literally threw Johnny Gargano a pizza party as a going away. Did you get a slice? Because I got there too late to grab the pizza.
Well, I mean, I don't eat pizza, but I considered just eating it for the first time ever because Cody Rhodes bought me a pizza. But I did not. So, whatever. But, like, we were walking in the venue, and he was outside, bringing in the pizzas, and I was like, what the hell? Like I had saw it on Twitter that he mentioned earlier in the day, but I never took full into it. But man, what a cool thing to do. Like, you're on the Independence, you buy pizza for 350 people, 40 pies, whatever it is. He said he called a New York place and they hung up on him. So just what a thing. And then the main event, the crowd chanting, thanks for pizza and pizza roll, pizza hero. Great stuff. Like, you talk about changing a match, like all the rolls and stuff that they were just throwing in there just to pop the crowd was fantastic in that main event. No way that they could have planned for that one.
Yeah, you had Hero and Galloway taking on Gargano and Rhodes. Hero's just such a great heel.
Well, I guess we skipped Sabre and Ricochet.
Oh, wait. Oh, how do we... This is a crazy thing. That the weekend was so good that you could skip, by mistake, Sabre and Ricochet because there were so many good matches. So Sabre and Ricochet, I thought that Laboom gave them the opportunity to really perform at the highest level they could. Watching Ricochet hit that 630 in person was, woo!
I was worried. See, okay, so now there's two things here. One, I remember Ricochet being on somebody's podcast and them asking him about, his crazy style, and him basically saying it's not gonna be lasting too much longer. Like, I'm already starting to slow down and take more care of myself and only do those things in crazy spots. So it was really good to see, and watching a couple of his PWG matches that I just bought, it's a similar thing. So awesome to see, because I haven't really seen that side of Ricochet. So to see him be technical and go move for move with Sabre was fantastic. And then to still hit the shooting star and then the 630 was amazing. I was a little bit worried about the ceiling in La Boom and going to cheat me out of seeing Ricochet. But on the other side, there were no lights. So I don't know if they took those lights down or if there just weren't any lights in that area. But thankfully there weren't, and that side of the ring is clear.
That was a crazy match, and what was interesting to me was the little frustration that Sabre Jr. showed after losing, kind of slamming his hands on the apron and then slamming, kicking over the steps.
See, I guess I should have seen it coming, because Sabre got the win over Gargano, and like I said, they balanced things out. But I was stunned that Ricochet got this win. Sabre's whole thing right now is his quest for the title. So, losing to Ricochet in his first singles match, I was like, whoa, not that Ricochet is any type of slouch, but I was really surprised.
Yeah, no, it was... I think it just builds the frustration, like you said. I think that he's building towards that, and also Ricochet got the loss the night before, and this is Ricochet we're talking about. He's not going to be back there for a while. He is somebody who could come off looking. Losing to Ricochet does not make you bad.
Vice versa, yeah.
It doesn't knock you down a peg. So I thought that was well done. Did I skip anything now? Can I?
No, now I actually think we're good.
Yeah. So then we have the main event. And you had Chris Hero and Galloway, who they're so easy to hate. And I think one of the things that you and I were talking about is literally I don't think I root against anybody that I'm not I don't root for the heel when I should be rooting for the face here.
No, and not only do we just do that, the entire building does it. And the entire building cheers their hearts out for the good guys and boos the crap out of the bad guys. And, when there are guys who are a little bit of tweeners, such as Ethan Page or maybe even Zack Sabre, there are boos somewhere and there are cheers. So that part is always fun. Or for example, when Zack Sabre and Ricochet were facing off, there's dueling chants because both guys are beloved. So they do such a great job of getting those characters. Like you said, Galloway and Hero and Dustin, they're douches. And that's the most beautiful thing. There's no in between. They're just straight up assholes. They don't like Evolve, and they shit on it every time they get it's perfect. I don't think I've ever flipped anyone off at wrestling. Those guys, it's almost involuntary. It's just what else can I do?
And every time I flip off Galloway, every time I get scared. I think you can see it in my face. I'll be like, "Fuck you, Galloway," and then
I mean, I intentionally don't do it when he's a foot away from me. I wait till he's 2 feet away, and then I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now at least if he starts to come at me, I have some time to he's not going to actually hit me, instead of my initial reaction of So yes.
Oh, no, I get scared. And by the way, at 68, when Galloway was facing Gulak, big problems for this guy, who literally the crowd started laughing at me because I'm like, "Let's go, Drew!" And then one guy's like, "You know they're both Drew, right?" And I was like, "Oh." And then I was like, "All right, Gulak," and then I would forget, and then chant Drew again, and they were looking at me like, "Yo, guy, you gotta come on, it's not clear who you're rooting for."
Jesus.
But the main event was excellent. It was what you wanted. Have Johnny win. You had there was that crazy spot where Gargano does a suicide dive and lands on the other side of the barricade, and then ran back and forth.
Johnny Gargano was on the apron, and Cody Rhodes jumped off the turnbuckles. Gargano hit the somersault off the apron at the same time, and then kind of just I don't know, just kind of carabined into the crowd, whatever. Yeah. But David Starr went literally head first into the barricade and fell into the crowd. But Gargano ran back and forth. They did a great job of just hyping up the crowd every chance they could. The heels, playing to the crowd. At one point, I yelled to the ref to check Hero's elbow pad, and he just looked at me and put up his elbow pad. What the hell? That's there's a bunch of times on the show when you can legit, obviously I know your voice, but you can hear you screaming "Take off the hoodie!"
Oh, I was so.
And it's just. I can hear the guy next to us I can hear the guy next to us scream "I only drink real water." So that was man. Just the environment at Evolve is unlike anything I've ever been to.
Nobody has ever gotten so much heat from me ever for I was so angry that he was in that hoodie. It wasn't me being annoying to just be loud and be heard. I was legitimately take that fucking hoodie off. You're in a fucking wrestling match.
You weren't alone. The crowd cheered when he took it off.
It was amazing. And then they ended up locking Hero in a double submission.
The super kick exchange was pretty awesome too.
It was all. And then Gargano ends up making Hero tap to the Gargano escape. And then this is why I was happy that it was at 68. Because Gargano grabs the microphone, and he's about to say goodbye to the crowd, and that son of a bitch, Ethan Page, runs out and just floors him and goes off on this amazing, believable tirade. "I fooled all of you! I fooled everyone! Except for Johnny! Why'd you have to be so smart?" And basically was "I never wanted your forgiveness. I was just trying to play you."
See, there's part of me that wished Page would have come out calmly and been hey, extended his hand, and then went. But I think that might have made it look like it was reactionary instead of planned. He only attacked him because Gargano wouldn't shake his hand. This way, it was just I didn't care about the handshake, blah, blah, blah. So, fantastic angle. I mean, I loved him coming out and nailing him. Package pile driver, cutting the promo in his voice was almost funny. And, at first people laughed, and then they're "Oh, wait a minute, boo." So that was good. Just really well done. And then when he's done, he says, "All right, now I give the gift of Johnny Gargano laying here lifeless to anyone." And Galloway and Dustin come out. They rip the Evolve banner off the stage, bury Johnny Gargano, and then the man, the bro, Matt Riddle, walks out nice and calmly. Galloway talks to him, gets on a knee and proposes, him to join. And Riddle shakes his hand. Not for a second did I believe he was actually.
I was legitimately.
There was no
upset.
chance. There was no as soon as he shook his hand, I said no chance. Like there's no way. Evolve is not stupid. So Riddle shakes his hand, kicks Galloway in the head, takes out Dustin. Ethan Page flips out. Then we get the legit almost passing of the torch. Gargano tells Riddle Evolve is bro, and they do that whole thing. Great exchange. I wish the whole locker room would have come out and that sort of a thing. I like to see those, but hey, perfectly fine for what it was. Like you said, you were at 68. I watched it on pay-per-view, so I'm glad we got to see him talk to the guys and have the moment with Gabe. And when I saw that, I figured it was because he was getting attacked by whoever that was. So
I'm glad you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I kind of went into it knowing like I don't think we're gonna get that big goodbye, but maybe we'll get part of it, and then the attack will come.
Thank you for not telling me, because it made it that much more everything amazing. Like I don't know. I went in with blinders on. I really went in with blinders on. And even the night before, I thought that Darby was going to beat TJP. I was like, oh, well, Darby probably wins tonight. And then after it happened, I went, what am I talking about? Like, he clearly has to do it the second night, not the first night. Like, there's no excitement there.
It's funny because, like you mentioned, like how TJP would have gotten more attention had this just been his night. But, like, I didn't even really realize, like, that TJP was leaving. Like, I knew he was going to Raw. And I knew he wasn't going to be there like the next shows, but for some reason it just didn't really register. Like I knew it, but I didn't acknowledge it.
And I think that TJP is our perfect bridge into really. I mean, we've gone very long today. I thought Raw and SmackDown
they had their moments.
They had their moments. They were pretty good shows. I liked on Raw. I really liked that Roman didn't win the match against Kevin Owens, so he's not going to be in the title match, keeping him out of it. I'm trying to think of else what I liked on Raw.
The Owens Jericho stuff is always hilarious. I mean, them calling Tom Phillips different names will never ever get old. It was an okay Raw. I'm more excited for next week with the Cruiserweights and especially now TJP, but it was an okay Raw. It was an okay SmackDown. We got continuations of the usual. We had a great John Cena, Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles promo that, some people are complaining, like, what's the point? How is this just a triple threat? Like, I think it makes perfect sense. Like, AJ just beat Cena, so they've had beef. Cena's beaten him before. He just beat Ambrose. Ambrose gets his rematch. I'm perfectly fine with them, especially because, like I just said, there's a whole backstory to this. So, that's fine. Ambrose and Cena had some legitimate comments about each other that, there you go, there's their hatred. And then the double arm DDT at the end, Dirty Deeds, there you go, done. There's their conflict.
And I like Ambrose a lot more like this. Not wearing a foam cowboy hat in Mohegan Sun.
He's got a beard. I think that was new. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't been really paying attention.
What happened to Roman? I liked Roman's full beard.
It's just gone. Gone.
Like
he went to the pay-per-view, gone. I was like, come on.
He just... I don't understand it.
Oh, yeah, that also happened on Sunday, too, right? Backlash, AJ Styles winning the title. Wow. See, like, that's funny. See, I don't even know if you watched it, but, like, I watched it kind of half-assed. Like I texted you, I legitimately couldn't enjoy it because of me just getting home from Evolve. And I was just too hyped. I wasn't there. Like, the crowd chanting, "This is awesome," and I was like, nah, you haven't seen what I saw. Like, I'll give you a "this is awesome" chant. So that kind of took me out of it. And then at some point, Styles winning got spoiled for me, so it just threw off the whole thing. But, hell of a main event there. Great. I'm shocked that AJ Styles got that win, even though I thought it was coming. Still wasn't positive, and that's a beautiful thing.
I guess for me, that pay-per-view can be summed up in 3 words. Double wide, baby. I was excited. Like, look, I'm really happy about AJ Styles, and really, if I have to be serious, that was the biggest thing that happened, and kind of the most exciting. But for me, I don't know. I wanted Heath Slater and Rhino to win. He wins and just yells out double wide trailer. That just amazing. And I know they're gonna probably lose it pretty soon, but.
Yeah, I thought they were going to lose to the Ascension. Like,
I was scared.
Yeah, I was like, yo, they're not like this. Please, God, please don't allow this to happen. And thankfully, that was just like a warm up. All right, here these guys go. They got to win, no problem. So hopefully, we move on from there. I don't know. Are they going to get the Usos? Someone else going to come in? Whatever. I guess we'll find out next week on SmackDown because we didn't really get much this week from it. So. That's fine, no problem. And then I guess we can get to the biggest, perhaps, show of the week, which was the Cruiserweight Classic last night. And wow, I mean, all 4 matches on the show were absolutely incredible. Made even cooler by the fact that we just saw 3 of these guys. Like I said 4 days ago, and especially TJP. All right, so we had Sabre and Metalik first, and good match. Right off the bat, it started with a bang. We got right into it, and I commented, I wasn't really a fan of Metalik before last night, and last night I'm in, all in, 100% sold. He got me, so that's all they really needed to do there.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching a little bit of CMLL, so I've been seeing Metalik. As his, down there, he's Máscara Dorada, but I think last night even put me, like, he got over with me a lot more last night as well. And the whole show was great. I mean, when your breather match is Ciampa and Gargano versus Noam Dar and Cedric Alexander, and the match they put on, when I was like, when am I going to get to go to the bathroom? Like, I didn't want to pause it because I didn't want to be behind. Thank God the bathroom break was the WWE Network commercials.
Mm-hmm.
The minute those started, I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom because I didn't want to miss anything. And it was they told a story. One of the things that I miss about, let's say, King of the Ring is that you have those nights where a guy tells a story over a number of matches.
Yeah, you sell the injuries and that sort of a thing.
Yeah, that's the best. Like when I in WWE 2K17, I get offended when they talk about having the tournament and it's like, do you want damage to carry over? And it's like, what do you mean? Why would you not have damage carry over? This is offensive. I'm not playing this over 5 days. I'm doing this right now.
And I also just want to point out that at one point in time, TNA had T.J. Perkins, the Young Bucks, Okada, and Jay Lethal, as well as the rest of their roster, under contract at one time. And, they had TJP under a mask, and, what a difference a few years or a few months makes. Just incredible that, 2 years ago, TJP was dead in the water at TNA. He left there, goes to Evolve and all these indies and blows up again. Now here he is. So that, I guess that can bring us into that match of TJP and Ibushi. And wow. A lot of people, Gabe Sapolsky being one of them, commented that this is the best match he's ever seen TJP have. And from what I've seen, I can't disagree because that match was just off the charts. I really didn't think TJP was going to pull that out, so it made it that much better.
Well, someone over here was pulling him from the beginning. I think if you guys go back a couple episodes, you might, or not a couple, it's probably like 2 months, but you might catch me being a straight mark for TJP and talking about how I expected him in the finals. That was an amazing match. It was better than the main event match.
Was it? I don't know, but go ahead.
The reason I'm going to say that so the match itself was better.
Yes.
But I was so on
the
edge.
feel. Yeah, exactly.
Like when Grand Metalik had TJP up on the second, on the top rope, and he was going to go hit his move, my heart sank. Legit, I was so that was Stat Wife was asleep. That was the noise I made. I went, oh.
Yeah, when he got out of the knee bar, like the second or third, like TJP pulled them back to the center, and then he got out of it. And I was like, oh. And if you notice, they did the same reversal that Riddle and TJP did the night before, where like he just crawled backwards. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, I mean, the feel of the main event felt like a main event and felt like a big deal, and that made it that much better. But man, both matches killed it, or whatever. All 4 matches killed it. But yeah, I mean, they made a superstar out of T.J. Perkins, and man, you couldn't have asked for a better execution. He sold the underdog gimmick the whole time, but he's so good in the ring, and it's beautiful to watch.
And it's crazy because he basically had a classic with Riddle that made Riddle a star that night. Like it kind of pushed him up. I thought that match really made Riddle look great. Because
Riddle's already been there, but
Riddle could say now, he just beat the WWE Cruiserweight champion.
Well, that helps. Like that now he can say that. But at the time, I don't think. Reading Gabe Sapolsky's Twitter last night, he had no idea. Oh. So, I don't think it played into it. But yeah, put the guy over on the way out. Now he's a huge deal, so that makes the guy he put over a bigger deal. Hey, WWE, learn from that. Go ahead.
And all right, Triple H, I know you're listening. You need to stop this. I can't handle it anymore. All right? Coming out with Cedric and shaking his hand in front of everyone when they were saying, sign this guy. Coming out and shaking Owen's hand and giving him the title, basically. And now you come out before the match and you're like, by the way. And I thought he was like, one guy. And I'm like, come on, guy. I want the match. Just hurry up. And he goes, and then one guy will be the Cruiserweight champion. And then what? And that belt, does every single show do they not have like a meeting altogether? Because the people who made the SmackDown belts and the Cruiserweight belt, couldn't they have talked to the guy who was making the Universal belt? Because that Cruiserweight belt, I think, is one of the nicest belts they have right now.
Yeah, I really like the belt, and it's different because they don't have another Cruiserweight title. Like they just made everything the same, and we're not going to get into that because I don't have a problem with that. And blah blah blah. But I love the Cruiserweight title, and I thought I'm not sure where you were going with the Triple H thing up until the Cruiserweight part, but I didn't have a problem with any of that. Like I saw a lot of people yesterday, like, oh, it's not about you, Triple H.
Oh no, I'm not mad. I just mean like I can't handle the excitement that he's bringing into my life.
Yeah, because
what's next?
I understand people's hatred for him putting himself over, that kind of thing, but he hasn't done that in any of these situations. No. It's okay. First of all, that's his event. He put this together from scratch. So I want to see that guy out there. Thank you for this. And then he was out there to present the title. Like he wasn't out there to be like, hey, this was my creation and I saw this from the ground up. He didn't do that. He came out here and said, one of you is going to be the Cruiserweight champion. Great. That was perfectly fine. So I don't understand all the people's negative, like, get over what happened in his career. Like, the guy is responsible for everything we love about wrestling right now. So cut the shit. Just leave him alone.
I don't get that. I don't know. Like, the only thing that I think would make me happier, like with Triple H, the way he's been doing things, if he showed up at my door with a giant check and was like, "Rich, congratulations, you're with me." Like I don't. There's no. He keeps like almost. Every time he comes out, it's just something that I can't believe he's doing more and more to make the WWE as better.
He just does something better every time. And hey, man, it's gonna be really cool to see how they're presented on Monday and clear. So I mentioned to you before, but I just watched. They had the video of T.J. Perkins getting his pictures taken and blah blah blah, and one of them Triple H is there, and as he's walking away, he's just like, "Oh, I hope you didn't have any plans on Monday," and I'm just like, "Yo, man, that's awesome!" This guy, and T.J. Perkins responded "Nah, wrestling's my life," and just kept taking pictures, and it's just "Yo, man, that's awesome." He didn't know he was going to be on Raw until that very moment, or it's fantastic. I love that kind of stuff, and the emotion that was there was so real and pure. And he cut a good promo after about inspiring people and all that. So just really well done. I think the right person won. It came down to the two guys under contract, and at first I was like, well, this is lame. That it's two guys under contract. Yeah, duh. But then when it was for the title, it made a lot more sense because you can't give the title and have someone on Raw who's not under contract. So that was fine. But, hey, hell of a tournament. It sucks that it's over now. Hopefully we get more of something similar,
Please.
in the next year.
Please.
I heard there's talk of a women's classic kind of a thing.
Oh my God.
And, hey, so whatever they choose to do, I would love to see the Dusty Classic come back, but maybe they're going to do these things every 4 years, do the Dusty, then the Cruiser, then the Women's, then something else. So, hey, whatever.
I think Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks said it best. He's like, man, wrestling fans really like tweeting about the year. But seriously, 2016, best wrestling year of my life right now.
It's, there's nothing like it. And people who are just getting into wrestling, they're spoiled. They have no idea what it was really like half a year ago.
And then, and lost in all this shuffle, poor Ring of Honor had Bobby Fish versus Shibata on their weekly program, and it was an incredible match. And, I mean, with all of this wrestling going on this week, I know that a lot of people probably didn't get a chance, but if you can, I mean, you're getting Shibata for, and Shibata, there's been reports that he has, may have some fractures in his spine or something. Not because of that match, because that was taped after Death Before Dishonor, but still, if you get a chance, go on the Fight app or whatever, or go on ringofhonorwrestling.com, check out that match. I thought it was really great, and then you had Donovan Dijak kind of looming at the end because he's the number one contender. And Fish just beat Shibata, and now hopefully Dijak's going to take that title off him at All-Star Extravaganza. And then the only thing that I didn't like about the Ring of Honor show was you had the Bullet Club versus Lethal, Naito, and Evil. And I had said last week that I thought it was weird to pick two dudes who weren't going to be around. Well, during the match, they just leave. Right? Which happens. And you would think that maybe the Bullet Club would win and then they would get more heat on Lethal, right? No. Because then suddenly Michael Elgin runs down and Nigel McGuinness is like, yeah, no, it's fine, you're in the match now. And I'm like, now if I'm in the audience and I'm watching this match and two guys leave and then another guy just shows up, I would be like, that man is illegal. He's not part of this matchup.
But his partner's left. Though.
So Nigel's like, yeah, go ahead. And then after Elgin's getting beat up, right, because finally the numbers game gets to him, Kyle O'Reilly runs down. And then Nigel McGuinness is like, yeah. And it's kind of like they kind of restarted the match. But I guess it was a good way to include the New Japan guys. But at the same time, I wrote, if I'm sitting in the audience, I'd be like, what the fuck? How is this allowed? The rules of wrestling say this is not allowed. But, Nigel was sitting ringside, so I guess it's okay. I don't know.
Yeah, no problem. They're just replacing his partners who left. But there also was on Lucha Underground, there was a Weapons of Mass Destruction, which was, just basically a crazy chaos, weapons everywhere match between Killshot and Marty the Moth. That was fantastic. And it ended they were both on the ladder and there was a table beneath them and Marty the Moth was kind of laid backwards hanging off the ladder and Killshot did the double stomp on him in the air and then all the way down through the table. Sick. Absolutely sick. Perfectly executed. It made a star out of both of them right there. So awesome match.
All right. Well, I mean, the only other thing I can think of, Ring of Honor this weekend has 2 shows, one in Pittsburgh and one in Lockport, New York. So the couple good matches coming out of that. Hopefully that'll be up on the VOD pretty soon. So I'm kind of looking forward to taking a look at those because they've kind of taken a little bit of a break other than Field of Honor of releasing a lot of the VODs. They haven't had a lot of shows on the weekends. So I'm looking forward to those. And I guess at this point we'll take a moment to introduce our special interview this week. We have Kelly Klein from Women of Honor, so just sit back and hope you guys enjoy the interview.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Kelly Klein to the podcast. Kelly, thank you for your time.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, so just wanted to start off. We know that you actually were a theater major in college. What were some of your most memorable productions or like a favorite role that you played?
So I was actually specifically a musical theater performance major in college. I also completed a musical theater certificate program when I was in high school. That was through University of Cincinnati's College Conservatory of Music. So I was also studying a lot of acting. I completed the musical theater certificate program during high school, and then I took some acting and everything as well. So some of my favorite roles, one of my number one is called Anything Goes. It's a musical by Cole Porter, and I got to play one of the female leads, in my opinion, the more fun female lead, because I got to do a lot of tap dancing, a lot of singing. I got to do some comedy, and it was just really a lot of fun for me. So that's, and actually that was a role I was actually in that particular show 3 different times. And the first time I was in it, I think I was just, when I was younger, I was maybe just, I'm trying to remember, I think I was in the ensemble and maybe with like a little breakout line or something or another. And then the second time I was in it, I was one of the featured kind of dance roles, which were the angels, who backed up the lead female Reno. And that character Reno was something that I aspired. It was one of my favorite shows and one of my favorite characters. I always wanted to get an opportunity to play that character. And because of the way the show's written, she's written generally for an older woman, not really old, but more. I basically never thought I would have a chance to play that role until I was in my 30s. And I went and I auditioned for this show, a third production, thinking, really at the time thinking I was going to maybe be cast as one of the younger female characters, and they offered me the role of Reno and kind of worked it out to where I could play the role a little bit younger than it was originally written and played. So I was shocked and excited because I just had assumed I would never get a chance to even touch that role for a long time. So that was really cool. And I mean, obviously, I performed in that show 3 different times, so I clearly loved it. But a couple of other favorite roles were actually more dramatic acting roles. One was in a show called Juvie, and it was really, really dramatic and intense. It was, as the title mentions, it's basically about young people in juvenile detention, and they're telling their stories. And in telling these stories, they're kind of reliving and acting out the scenarios. So my character had this really intense kind of story where she had been trying to rob a house, and the owner returned, and it was this older man, and she was trying to hide and trying to get away, and she ended up really hurting him badly. And then she also was on drugs, so which I had no, reference. So I had to do some research to figure that out. And at the end of the show, it just closed with basically me like going through withdrawal symptoms, kind of like it's like a dark theater in the spotlight. So that was really, really emotional and intense, and one of my favorite roles just to really dig into because it was so different and really challenging. And then another favorite is a show called JB that is based on the book of Job from the Bible. Mm-hmm. And my role was as one of the messengers. So I was an angel, but the way the show's written is I come in all these different forms. So it was so cool because I got to, throughout this one show, I got to play all of these different characters that I appeared as. And that show was actually written for a mostly male cast. And some of my characters were played as male, and so that was really interesting. Just throughout that one show, finding the different mannerisms for each of these characters and figuring out how each of them talked and how each of them moved and carried themselves, and because I couldn't just show up as the same person, and I had to really be able to present to the audience who would see me, basically looking the same every time, but they had to know that I was somebody different. So it was just really, as far as an actor, it was a lot of fun challenges for me, and I got to really kind of explore some different techniques and everything, and do a lot of the legwork and the just the grunt work that goes into it. And that's, to me, kind of, I'm sure we'll get to this when we talk more about wrestling, but that's something that I love. I love doing the work, and I love the journey, and it's almost, the process is a huge thing to me, sometimes more than the result. So, sometimes it's almost more fun just to be working toward my goals than necessarily meeting the goal itself. While that's great, it's the thing that where the meat of it is just that journey and that process of getting there.
Do you miss the musical aspect of performing now that you're wrestling and your character doesn't really lend itself to singing in the ring?
I actually am able to find other outlets for music, and right now I'm completing my degree for vocal music education. So I'm currently preparing for my senior vocal recital, as well as studying guitar, and so that's something where I'm getting to kind of get that outlet. And then when I'm not doing that, I've done things like done some professional work as like a section leader, a vocal section leader at churches. I've done just private individual kind of gigs. I've done some work with like high school students and choirs, and kind of like helps them with movement and singing and things like that. So I'm able to sort of find that elsewhere. It's definitely still a huge part of my life and always will be.
Have you ever gone to one of these functions and had like one of the kids recognize you at the school as being Kelly Klein from Women of Honor?
I haven't yet, because actually the group that I've been doing a lot of work with sort of knew me before Women of Honor kind of started catching steam. So that maybe that'll happen. But I've had some things recently where people have said like, oh, you were at my kid's such and such, or things like that, or so I am starting to have that where some people know me from wrestling and then will cross paths with me or see something where another part of my life, I guess, has intersected with theirs. So that's kind of neat.
That's cool. And so how did you get into wrestling in the first place?
The way that I got into wrestling, because I didn't grow up watching it, I have this really early memory of, now I didn't grow up with cable, so this was whenever it was like on Sunday mornings on just public access, and my mom must have been getting my little sister ready to go to church, so my little sister was pretty young. So I remember at least my dad and I were sitting, waiting, and we were watching, wrestling was on. And I remember my mom coming into the room and saying she didn't want us watching that. She didn't want she didn't want the kids watching it. So that was the last time I ever remember seeing it, other than when there would just be commercials for like monster truck rallies and wrestling events at Hero Arena, you know, in the area, stuff like that. So I would see those commercials, and you see, I remember, you know, like the Ultimate Warrior's face popping up on the screen, but that I didn't see any of it. I didn't know anything about it. So when I was working around Cincinnati, I was part of a rock band, and I was also waitressing, so I invited people I worked with to come see my band, and one of the other servers said, well, I'll come see your band if you get your band to come see me wrestle. And I thought, okay, what the heck, this sounds interesting, and, you know, it wasn't real far from where I lived. It was, you know, something I got my guitarist and another friend of mine, you know, to go to this show, and I just remember the very first time I ever went that I knew I wanted to do it. I never had a moment where I wanted to come back as a fan and like, oh, I want to keep coming to these shows and watching this. It was immediately, okay, how do I get into that ring? So it was definitely something immediately that I really wanted to pursue, and started sleuthing to find out where and how I could train and become part of that.
And so you didn't grow up as a fan. Did that make the experience like more difficult, or was it actually easier because you didn't have any kind of grandiose ideas?
Yeah, I think it definitely was a little bit of both, because I didn't come in enamored with the idea of wrestling or the part that you see on TV. I came into it fully aware of the work. And like I mentioned, I like the process, and I like tackling challenges and tackling big goals. So I really didn't ever come into it thinking or comparing it to anything I'd seen on TV, because I hadn't really seen anything on TV to have any concept of the greater stage available. I just saw this independent wrestling show at Heartland Wrestling Association and thought, I just want to be doing that. It was just all about the doing of it. So that was definitely helpful, and I didn't have any kind of like preconceived, ideas. Something that was challenging was I had to catch up on the history, and I did that actually, I think, fairly well. I had to go back and watch DVDs and borrow tapes and DVDs from different people, go to used bookstores and see what I could pick up there to watch. So, and then, like getting a hold of books and different things that I could read that kind of gave me an idea of different people and the history. So it was definitely me sort of playing catch up, because there were people that I wouldn't know who they were or they're significant. And sometimes, people just expect you to know, not realizing that, hey, I'm still trying to learn all of this, and I didn't grow up around it or grow up as a fan, so I'm not aware of it. So I think there were some times when people maybe kind of had negative opinions because I didn't know things, just not realizing that I was learning and I was in the process of learning as much as I could. And I did do the work. I didn't just think, oh, well, whatever, I'll figure it out. I mean, I really did seek out as much as I could. Now I think that in a way I have more knowledge and understanding of some of the history than even some of my peers maybe do, because I really wanted to go back and see what I missed.
That makes sense. Like you don't have memories of a match you watched 15 years ago. You maybe watching the last couple of years, so it's a lot more fresh in your mind.
Yeah, and I also went back further than anything I would have just seen as a fan. So I was going back to things that happened before I was born, where someone who maybe just gained most of their knowledge through being a fan is only going to know really what went on in their lifetime, and maybe not know like the backstory and the business aspect, and how different things impacted the next thing in history and how everything was interrelated. So I studied it more in that way, and I still try to do that. And I think that is definitely beneficial, so that maybe I can recognize how things now might impact the future, and that's just not something that you're going to get from just watching purely as a fan.
So when you were training, you trained with Les Thatcher and Jimmy Yang. Did they give you, were they some of the people who were asking you to go back and study more?
They always were, offering me ideas and suggestions, and I, even now, I'll go and I'll watch old wrestling tapes with Les. So that's really great, because it wasn't that he was ever saying, oh, you need to go back and study this, but he would have the resources and would, he knows what matches, and he can say, hey, let's watch this match, or let's watch this show. And then I can sit there and listen to somebody who in many of these cases was actually there or helped orchestrate or facilitate something, give me the background on it that, a lot of people wouldn't have access to.
What would you say the most important, some of the most important lessons you've learned while training with them?
Les is, I think, well known for using the L word, logic.
Yes.
And that's, I think, one of the first things that comes to mind is no matter what somebody's preferences or style is, it has to make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then there's something wrong. Something Les has also been really helpful with is understanding the evolution of wrestling. So he can, while he has his preferences on a lot of things, he does recognize that, things change, but he also is a really good resource for some of the things that have changed but maybe shouldn't have, or some things from history that are valuable and maybe need to be reignited. And I've gotten some really good instruction with him where there are things that I know have caught people's eye, and they're just things where he really focuses on doing things right and having a really good solid foundation, so that no matter what other acrobatics you're doing, that stuff doesn't matter if somebody doesn't believe what you're doing. And I think that's probably the best way to put it, is he's really really good about teaching and focusing on believability. And then I also love how he kind of helps break things down mentally, where there will be certain things that he's pointed out where, okay, somebody might want to do such and such and it looks cool and they like it, but they don't necessarily pay attention to the context that somebody else would have done that. So understanding that big picture and finding out, okay, why did this work and why was it used the way it was used, as far as, something creative, just, again, logic and making it work correctly, so that you're not just doing something because it looks cool. So he's just always been great on just really I guess the best way to put it is the mental side. There were times where I left training and I was just so mentally exhausted because he just has so much to teach and would just really break things down and make you think about it. So I love just getting to talk to him and hearing kind of his thoughts and discussing different things. And sometimes I'll have specific questions that I'll ask him, okay, what do you think about this? And I definitely, there were times where I left practice and training physically exhausted, and there were times where I left completely with my brain fried, and sometimes both. So you covered those bases.
A lot of the nuance from your acting, especially with that show where you were playing multiple roles, really lends itself to being in the ring and the nuance and the logic of drawing the crowd in during your match.
Definitely. And I think that one of the, I guess one of my favorite things to do with wrestling is to use techniques that I'm aware of from literature and from theater. And I think that a lot of the best wrestlers are people that don't eat, sleep, and breathe just wrestling, because if you think about it, then eventually you're just going to keep sort of regurgitating the same things. But if you're somebody who is able to pull influences from music, from pop culture, from history, from mythology, from literature, all of these kinds of things, from even maybe other athletics, that's when you're going to be able to sort of evolve into something different. But if it's just you keep kind of repeating the same things, and then somebody's seeing that, and you're just, it's almost like, I don't know the best way to put it. It's like, just like this, I think of when you're like breeding dogs and you're trying to purify a line, and eventually you just get, it really screws it up, you know. You're limited because you only get the same traits eventually. And I think that's definitely a drawback when you're trying to just kind of do the same thing over and over. Then it's not going to have the same kind of value and power.
It's really interesting, and this is all stuff that we are able to see now as you're participating in Women of Honor. How has becoming a staple in Women of Honor changed your life?
Well, it's still it's kind of hard to say. I'm still so, I guess, into the process and the journey of it. It's only been just over a year since Women of Honor relaunched, and I'm still trying to really be part of kind of it picking up momentum and picking up steam and catching traction, and we're doing that, but I don't see it as we've arrived necessarily. I see it as we've been putting in the work, and we've still got a lot of work to do. So I guess in a way I'm almost more distracted by, okay, what's the next step? What's the next goal? And that's really kind of where my head is at. I do think that it's, in a way, it's motivated and encouraged me because I have achieved things in wrestling that I never necessarily thought that I would. So now that I'm starting to kind of break past barriers that other people had set for me and some that I had set for myself, I'm just, I guess, seeing this kind of just huge array of opportunities that are in front of me now that I probably wasn't even aware of before. So to me, this is just fuel to keep getting better and better and to keep pushing harder and working harder.
Well, tied into goals, recently Ring of Honor made an announcement that they were going to unveil a new title, and there was a lot of chatter on the internet and a lot of support for Women of Honor getting a championship. And it ended up coming out that it was actually a 6-man tag title. How did that impact the goals you set when you guys you ladies don't have a championship in the division?
I think that in a way a title could potentially give people more focus. But for me, because I have an undefeated streak, I have something sort of almost tangible to focus on. So I think that in some ways, okay, if you know, okay, I've got this match and it's for the title, I think that might actually mean more for some of the other women than it does for me right now, because to me, every match is a title match in that this match I'm either going to be undefeated or that's going to be over.
You know, speaking of your undefeated streak, you have a bit of a mean streak when you're taking on the other women, and you've been working with BJ Whitmer. He's been bringing you down to the ring. How has, BJ works as an incredible heel and can get most crowds to turn on him pretty quickly. How has working with him impacted your career? And has he given you any insights that have helped you develop?
He has definitely helped give me a lot of focus, and I think really when I talked about kind of maybe the confidence or the awareness of some of the opportunities that I might have, he's been one of the people that has been able to kind of open my eyes to some of that. There were, like when I mentioned barriers that other people set, for women, age is a barrier that we all hear about, and at different times, different people hear, well, right now WWE is only hiring people this age or that age, and I think it affects women a lot more than it does the men. So that was something where for a long time I had just heard these numbers over and over, and you just kind of think, well, if I don't make it by whenever, then I'm not going to make it. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side of that, there's the fact that we didn't have a lot of options as women years ago. And for some women, it was almost like there were no options, because if you're watching wrestling and you're looking at where the money is, and the only place that, so to speak, the money is WWE, but they're doing only certain things with the women, if you don't want to do that or be that, then that eliminates that final option. So then things happened, like the TNA Knockouts division started, mm-hmm. and Shimmer started picking up steam, and then there was Shine, and there was WSU, and then there's Soraya Knight has Bellatrix in Europe, and there are these great women's promotions in Japan and Mexico, and that all continued to sort of grow and expand, and not only that, but be taken more seriously as the women started to just really show what they could do. And it wasn't that the women weren't capable, it was that they didn't necessarily have a platform to show that. So once people really start seeing this, then we become taken more seriously. As we're taken more seriously, more opportunities open up, and it's just kind of this cycle where we can keep building and growing and catching this momentum. So he was, as far as BJ is concerned, he was somebody that, really was able to kind of push me and help me as an athlete and a performer work toward my potential. And when I was training with Les and BJ, they really didn't train me as a woman, and there are some places where the training is different for women, and I don't really think that it should be. I think that you should be trained as a wrestler and an athlete, and that's what I was able to participate in with my training, where it wasn't, well, you should do this move because it's cool when girls do this move. Mm-hmm. That wasn't ever, it was like, okay, well, are you an athlete and are you competing to win the match? How do you win the match? So, I was able to be part of that and have that type of training that just could push me as a performer and a competitor and hold me to the standards that frankly I want to be held to, and I want to be going after that level of performance. And I know that there are so many women out there right now that are all trying to do that and really pushing and trying to have the best matches on the show, no matter who's there, and trying to outdo the men. And sometimes we can we can give a lot of the guys a run for their money because we are training and performing and working as hard, if not harder, than some of our male counterparts are.
You've mentioned in other interviews that, and that you said just now that you want to be known as a wrestler, not a female wrestler. Have you, and, talking about how you guys sometimes work harder than the guys do on the card, have you ever been in an intergender match or maybe even in practice sparred with any of your male counterparts?
In practice, it was basically always working with male wrestlers. And it was interesting because there were definitely times where, I was pushing the guys, and I think some of them would even say, they kind of had to keep up with me. But part of the reason for that is I'm naturally super competitive. That's just who I am. That's my family, and it doesn't matter. This is actually a story about my older sister, just to give you an idea. When we were in elementary school, we had to do the president's physical fitness test, and there were different categories for boys and girls for some of the things, including push-ups. Mm-hmm. And the girls would have to do, I think, like 20 girl push-ups, where the guys would have to hold an isometric push-up. Mm-hmm. And my older sister went in, and my parents fully supported her, where she said, no, I want to do the isometric push-ups. Mm-hmm. So not only did she, and I think she may have done whatever the girls push-up thing was too, she beat every boy in the school, not just her class, every boy in the school. And now the part where there was like a little bit of a fight was the teacher did not list her at all in either category because she didn't compete. I think she must have only done the isometric push-up. So she didn't get listed on the girls because she didn't compete with them. And she didn't get listed on the boys list because she wasn't a boy. So she beat everybody in the school and didn't get listed. And then after that whole fiasco, I was not even allowed to do the isometric push-ups, even though I practiced with my dad and I was ready and I could do it. The teacher didn't even allow it after that. But that's just something where the way I was raised and the way my family is, even though my sister didn't get public credit for what she had done, we knew and she knew, and she knew that she could do better than what was being asked, and she held herself to a higher standard. And it became, kind of a competition with herself, and that's how I am. Is it's a competition with myself. So I'm always going to be pushing myself harder and trying to do better. And as a woman in wrestling, we also have the obstacle to where we have to just get people to take us seriously in the first place before mm-hmm. they'll even basically watch us and give us a chance. So that's why I say a lot of the women, and I think a lot of women you talk to can tell you the same thing. We have to do even better just to get somebody to pay attention, to get them to take us seriously. When two guys come out to have a match, people accept that, okay, we're going to watch this wrestling match. These guys are going to come out and have a match. When two women come out, that's when, in a lot of places, in a lot of audiences, you'll hear them start saying negative things or yelling the cat fight stuff or hooting and hollering. And I know that wrestling's an aesthetic business. It is for the men too, but it definitely is for the women even more. Mm-hmm. But the men don't have to break past that fact in order to go out and have their match. The women often do. We have to get people to stop looking at us just as something to objectify and get them to move beyond that to watch our matches. And that's why we have to come out and really bring it, because people just put up a wall. So we have to get past that wall. They're not even, a lot of times, and this is changing. I'm not saying, this is just everybody, But a lot of times there's that wall and there's that barrier, and a lot of times I call it, there's this mountain we have to climb just to get people to watch our match and take it seriously. So that's why we have got to be on point, and that's why we're all working so hard, because I've watched certain matches where I think that if a guy had the same match, it would be accepted. But if a girl does it, because we're climbing that mountain, then sometimes it gets kind of trashed. And I think there's just a double standard there. So it's like, in a way, the women sometimes have to have an even better match than the guys do in order to be taken seriously. And, you know, sometimes that's how it is. And all we can do is just keep doing better until people start to realize, and not that, because like I said, people do realize, but till more people start to realize and understand what we are able to do, what we're capable of, and that we can and will do everything that the guys will do.
Do you think that your persona helps you break past that barrier or that mountain a little easier than some of your counterparts? Just because it seems like you carry yourself like, you know, like a female Brock Lesnar, with the kind of MMA style, and with the strong strikes and the submissions, and just obliterating some of the opponents you faced during your undefeated streak.
I think that in some instances, yes, it does help, because the way I carry myself and I present myself does not negate or ignore the fact that we're in an aesthetic industry. And I frankly don't think that I should have to choose to be pretty or badass. That's why I choose to be both. Mm-hmm. The point being that there are some women whose persona revolves more around the aesthetics. Mm-hmm. And it is by necessity more of a focus. And that's something that they, in many cases, I think they choose that, and that's totally okay, and there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to do that. But because of that, it makes it harder sometimes for the audience to be able to look past that and see what else those women are bringing. And it's really kind of stupid, because the audience should be able to recognize when a girl who's got her hair and makeup done and, you know, pink and frilly lace sparkles, when she does this really cool athletic move, they should be able to recognize that it's the same move whether she's done up or not. But people get distracted. They see sparkles and in pretty colors, and they get distracted. So because I minimize without eliminating that aspect, I think that people are able to a little bit more quickly and directly get to the badass part of the pretty badass.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about wrestling?
People think it's simple, and they think of it as something for the uneducated and the lowest common denominator, and it's absolutely not. When I was talking about bringing in literature and other elements, history, if you study wrestling, or if you get to sit down and pick the brain of some of the greatest wrestlers and writers of wrestling in history, you'll find that they are very intelligent and educated, and they are bringing these different creative elements. And sometimes there are these Shakespearean stories, and that is by no means the lowest common denominator. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is people think of wrestling as low and base, and it's really not.
That's horribly offensive. Myself, as an English teacher during the day, think just character like Macbeth, he started off as such a tragic character, and and you understand why he makes the decisions along the way, and then suddenly he's evil, and as you're going along, you don't think of him as evil completely until the very end. And there's still, something to be said for that. So,
I like to say, and that's an excellent example, because I was talking to someone recently, and they were asking me, if you're in wrestling, when you're a good guy or a bad guy, how do you do that, and what do you change? And I said, and I know other people have said this too, I didn't make it up myself, but it's the situation you're in. And with Macbeth, it was the situation, and it was his fatal flaw, what drove him to be that person and to become this person that he was at the end. And in wrestling, you can tell these stories where somebody has these intentions, and then along the way, they get clouded and they get blinded and distracted by what they have to do to achieve their goal. And they start to lose themselves. And that's when, out of context, you see this character, and it's like, oh, he's, he or she is just this evil, horrible person. But you peel back these layers and find out why, and what's the difference between this person and that person, and it's, what is their situation.
Oh, totally. I mean, like Kevin Owens, I think, is a great example where he, especially after he attacked Sami Zayn on NXT, and he talks about how he was doing it for his family. He was just trying to provide, and he was upset that, he had been there and he felt like he deserved it more. And then it became gray. And I think when a character is gray, it's far more interesting than when it's just black or white.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of times, even, again, I bringing in elements of history and literature, most villains don't think of themselves as villains. They believe that they are doing the right thing. Even Hitler, I think, believed he was doing the right thing for his country. But he is remembered as one of the most evil human beings in the history of the world.
It's all about perception. So, last question. What has been the most rewarding experience you've had since becoming a wrestler? And then also, on the flip side, what's the weirdest experience you've ever had?
I've had several really amazing, rewarding experiences, and one was very recently. I don't know if you've seen, I'm collecting funds to put together chemo care packages. And what those are is just, it's just a little gift bag with moisturizer and a couple of different items for someone going through chemotherapy, just to kind of make them a little more comfortable and just to have something nice. So I was at this event, and this lady and her husband came up to me, and they said, what are these chemo care packages? Can you tell us about that? And I explained it to them, and they said, the wife said, well, I just finished chemotherapy, and she was done, and they said, basically had just told her cancer was gone, and they wanted to contribute. And I, even now thinking about it, I got so emotional. And I think it was like just that week that she had her last treatment and had been cleared. And, it was just really cool that something I was doing had really personally affected them. And I've had a lot of people that have given me feedback on that. And then I've had other people who have just reached out to me and told me that some of the things that I've done or said have really inspired them to do better in a number of different ways. There was years ago a high school girl who said she worked harder on her homework because she saw, she just became inspired and felt like she could do better. There was a little girl who told a friend of mine, I guess she saw me come out of the entrance and said that she wanted to be like me, and my friend said, well, why? And she said she said, basically kind of what my whole platform is, that I was pretty, but I was also strong and could beat up the boys, basically. And my whole thing, my entire time in wrestling has been about not having to choose and not having to be one thing or the other, that you can be anything and any combination of things that you want to be, and that being strong and tough and independent doesn't mean that I can't be pretty and feminine, and vice versa, and being smart and really thoughtful and intellectual doesn't mean that you can't be athletic or you can't be funny. It's every one of those things, and they all have value, and choosing one or more of those things doesn't make you any less valuable than someone else. If somebody feels it's really important to them to be more on the feminine, nurturing side, and that's what they want, and that's what they're good at, and that's what they love, then I would never look down on them and think, well, no, but you should be out here competing and kicking butt. Like, no, that's not for them. And on the other hand, if I want to be out here kicking butt and getting dirty and, doing that whole thing, then that's my journey, and that's for me. And that, that doesn't mean that either one of us is wrong. It's just we're all different, but we don't have to choose one or the other.
Well said. All right. Well, I just wanted to. Is there, by the way, a place where we can? You want to share about helping out with those care packages?
Oh, sure. I have a GoFundMe account that is gofundme.com/KKleinBeauty. Mm-hmm. And then I've also had people, if you see me at live events, I usually have a box out that people can put contributions in, or I've had people just come up to me and say, here, this is for your chemo care. And so I put all of that aside. And then, just depending on, some people have not been able to do GoFundMe and have used PayPal, which they can contact me and get in touch with me if there's a different way that they wanted to contribute. But if you follow my Twitter and my Facebook, which both of those are Kelly Klein WOH, then there's usually information handy on those. I know on Twitter there's actually a link, I think, in my bio. And then otherwise, you can always reach me at either one of those, and I can get people the information.
Fantastic. Well, I want to wish you luck this weekend. On Friday, you're teaming up with Britt Baker and Vita Scott, take on Faye Jackson, Mandy Leon, and Crazy Mary Dobson. How does your undefeated streak play into a 6-women tag match? Is this still on the line?
Well, it's always on the line, and I maintained it when I was in the 4-way match with Kimberly, Taylor Hendricks, and Vita Scott. So these women better not drop the ball. I'm going to have to I was actually thinking about that today, and I was like, I may have to kind of take charge in there and, make sure that everything goes correctly, because I can't really trust my future and my successes and my opportunities in the hands of anyone but me. So I was definitely thinking about how to make sure I can kind of take things into my own hands. If you want something done right, you have to do it yourself, sort of thing. So,
well said.
Have my eyes on those girls.
And also, we can catch you on Women of Honor weekly on Wednesdays. There are new videos posted on the Ring of Honor YouTube page. There is the fantastic Women of Honor VOD that's available on ringofhonorwrestling.com. Hopefully we'll be seeing another one soon.
Yes.
And do you have any other shows that you want to talk to us about before we let you go?
No.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. No, just keep an eye on my Facebook and Twitter. As I mentioned, I am in school right now, so if you see that I'm going to be on an event near you, definitely take advantage, because it's going to be just a little bit more rare right now until I graduate. So if you see the opportunity, take it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to thank you very much for your time and for a pretty badass interview.
Thank you so much.
All right. And we're back. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview. I just want to, take a second to really thank Kelly Klein for coming on the show and sharing her thoughts about what's going on with her and her career.
Yeah, I completely agree. Great interview. And thank Kelly Klein for coming on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that, I think we've exhausted ourselves for this week. So I just want to remind you that if you want to send any emails, you can send them to runningwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on our very busy Twitter account. I think we just got, not we, I'll say you. Runz under the Running Wild LWOS on Twitter got added to most interesting wrestling Twitter list this last night. So excellent job of tweeting over there. You probably want to follow him. Again,
that's unbelievable.
If you want to see the 9 million articles that I've been writing a week, follow me over at Rich_Laconi on Twitter. That's LACONI. Please take a minute to stop by iTunes and leave a rate and review. All right. And also you can, of course, you can find us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, any of those podcasting services. And and just as a reminder, we're brought to you in partnership with LastWordOnSports.com, PWPonderings.com, and the Wrestling to the Max Network. With that all out of the way, and on a side note, my son has finally started to say this phrase, which is just amazing, so he's going to join us hopefully next episode. This is the podcast that is just too sweet.